I would be very interested to talk about work-life balance this week. I mean, do you think it exists? Because there's this whole narrative now about that actually it's impossible and it isn't a thing.
Hi, I'm Lucy.
And I'm Yasmine.
And we started an online community called Ecomm Girls Club because we had no friends.
Well, no, we had friends, just not friends working in e-commerce, D2C marketing and brand building like us.
And now we do. Ecomm Girls Club is the first international community exclusively for girls in e-commerce, and we have a lot to say about it.
So we started a podcast. We'll be here each week to talk about the highs and lows of entrepreneurship, building online business and the problems we face in the e-com industry.
And we'll also be sharing the stories of the amazing women within our community who are all crushing it. So let's get into it.
Hello, everybody. Excited to be back for
Hello.
another week of Yas and Lucy moaning about their work life.
No, we don't always moan. We actually do. This might be hard to believe, but we actually love what we do, and I can speak for the both of us on that, and especially Ecomm Girls Club. But I would be very interested to talk about work-life balance this week because I
let's
think
do that.
it's. I mean, do you think it exists? Because there's this whole narrative now about that actually it's impossible and it isn't a thing. But I don't know.
I think it depends where you are in your work journey, in your career journey. I think it's possible to do that? Yes, 100%. Do I think it's a lot harder and requires a lot more discipline than you're already putting in to build your business to also have work-life balance? Yes. And I think what happens is people give so much energy to their business because it's their baby and like that has to work, that there's just no energy left to actually like create a schedule that's going to allow you to have work-life balance. I think that's probably what happens. What do you think?
Yeah, I would agree. And I was just, as you were speaking, I was thinking back over like different jobs I've had and having a corporate career versus when I've been working for myself. I honestly think I had the best balance and I was probably the healthiest I've ever been when I had a job I did not care about.
Really? Oh my God, that
Yeah.
is so interesting.
Because I had more time. Like I just, I shut the laptop and forgot about it. And I did still care about my work, don't get me wrong, and I always did it to a high standard because again, I believe like good, holding yourself to a high standard, it follows you around. Never do bad work, whatever you're doing. And I've always lived by that. But if you're not super passionate about what you're doing, it's a lot easier to switch off and prioritize the gym and training or social activities than when you're doing something where it's a 24/7 job or you're so passionate about it that the email can't wait, those kind of things.
Yeah, it's really tough. I think I agree with you. I feel like I actually do have a pretty good work-life balance though. So
I would say you're a good example.
Yeah, but remember, like I'm 29 now and I started my first business when I just turned 22. So I've had like what's that? 7 years to really I've had 7 years to just basically go through it and have no work-life balance to the point where like when I was running elementary, I would have regular mental breakdowns and my diet was really bad. Like I was the skinniest I've ever been. My diet, so what I'd eat in a day would literally be get to the office, I'd have a oat milk mocha every single day. Like looking back on that, I'm like, fucking hell, that's so bad. An oat milk mocha. I wouldn't then eat until 2 p.m. where I'd have a M&S smoked salmon salad. And the only carbs that were in there were like 2 boiled potatoes. That would be it. And then I'd have dinner, which would again be a really small portion. This is nothing to do with like eating disorders which is a completely different conversation that is not for this podcast. And I absolutely did not have that. That's not what this point is that I'm making. But did I prioritize my health, my fitness, my diet, my nutrition? Absolutely not, because to your point, Luce, what you were just saying, the only thing I cared about was my business. And if that was working, nothing else mattered. Like that was the only thing I needed to focus on. But my skin was really bad. My health was really bad. My social life was basically like going out at the weekends. That was it. Like and I burnt out, and just there was no real sustainable work-life balance. And so like I went through all of that and then got to the end of it and was like, what the hell was that? Like, what, that is so unsustainable. And so now, being a bit older than 22, I guess, it's like, you know what, life is too short to live like that. And also, I don't believe that the net result is positive, and that's just through kind of experience, I suppose.
I feel like I'm being spoken to directly. Like I've been exposed.
Oh no,
as
I
I
think
have
I'm
my
speaking
diet
to
coach for lunch.
Oh right, yeah, well, yeah, maybe I am speaking to you directly. Maybe you're picking up on that. I don't know.
I do think it's super interesting though, because as well, a lot of people start businesses for some sort of freedom. So I started my agency partially because I wanted freedom of location. A lot of people think it was because of freedom of time. Freedom of time is not a thing when you're starting a business, to be honest. But I do have freedom of location, and it's great. And I think I know a lot of founders as well who have started their businesses because they want to grow exponentially, exit their businesses, and live a very chilled life, and then have freedom of time, freedom of whatever. Financial freedom being another big one, of course, as well. But I do think every founder I know goes through that phase where actually your health does go out the window. And you just kind of have to accept that for what it is. And that to a certain degree, there isn't that much balance when you're starting a business or you're going through a really like intense growth phase. But I have a question for you, which I think I kind of know the answer to, is the difference in your work-life balance running an agency versus running a product-based business or a D2C brand. Caveating that obviously you've had 7 years of experience that you said, but have you noticed a difference in kind of the intensity of workload?
100%. I mean,
Really?
when you're building your brand for yourself, the only person you have to answer to and be accountable to is yourself, and obviously your business partner in my case. When you've got an agency, there are so many people to be accountable for, and particularly in the type of agency that I ran, where I was working with influencers who would have managers, and then their managers would have managers, and then their managers would have directors, and they would then have assistants, and then you also work with design agencies and freelancers. And so in terms of like the agency itself and the network of people that we had to deliver to, it was absolutely massive per client. Maybe like, I don't know, at least 10 people per client that you were responsible for reporting into, delivering work for, except and managing generally. And then you times that by like 6 or 7 clients. All of a sudden, it's like, oh my God, the pressure is immense, and I don't miss it. And that's why I say I wouldn't go back into agency life, because for me, because I'm such a people pleaser, I really actually struggled to ever feel like I was really accomplishing what I wanted to achieve and hitting the standards that I wanted to hit, because it was always like, well, that can be better. We can do more here. Like, I don't know if that's just, you can apply that thought process to any kind of work that you do when you have our type of personality, probably. But the pressure is so different when you're only accountable to yourself, which at the moment I am. And there is such a freedom in that I don't want to relinquish. And I think, honestly, I never really thought about this. I'm actually really glad that you asked me the question, but I think that's exactly like, that's how I achieve my work-life balance at the moment, is because if I need to carve out half an hour to go for a walk because my head is just like going to explode, I can do that. And I don't need to, it's not even that you need to ask permission when you have your own agency, but it's in that half an hour.
People wanting your time.
Yeah. What if someone calls me or WhatsApp me, or an email comes in and I need to be in the office? It's a very different kind of pressure.
However, I will say, because I run an agency and I definitely don't have 10 people per client chasing me. I think because I work with early stage startups predominantly, I don't think any of my clients actually have 10 staff at the moment. That's why I'm there, I guess. But, well, that is why I'm there, literally. But I do think it's been really helpful in terms of Yasmine and I, we're balancing multiple businesses, and one of them we share, which is wonderful. It's really helpful for me that you have run an agency, because if I turn around and I'm like, Yasmine, like code red, I've got things to deal with, you understand and you're like, don't worry, I've got it, like, which is so helpful, because I think people who maybe haven't been through that experience don't get what it's like. And at the moment I wouldn't change it, because I've always been a people person, first of all, love people, and always knew I wanted to do something service based, at least to start with. But I also don't know any different, because actually working in a highly matrix banking environment where there are so many stakeholders, I've always done that. I've always had a queue of people to answer to, so I don't actually know any different. I think it would be different if I'd done something product based and then gone into an agency.
Yeah,
that would be rough.
Yeah, it is a totally different ball game. And I actually think it's really, really important to experience both. Like, you hear this a lot from more seasoned entrepreneurs. They'll often have done at least some time in agency, not necessarily owned an agency. I mean, if you own one, even better. But like, a lot of people have worked in agency because, it is just very different. It teaches you skills that actually are so integral to any business that you go on to start, probably in the same industry. But yeah, I do think it like gives you a bit more of a different perspective on your category and your industry, but it makes you more well-rounded. And actually, I think if you can run an agency or work in an agency and kind of come out the other side, I honestly, I think props to you. It makes you far more resilient and better equipped. Well, no, I know. And I actually, as hard as it was, thanks, babe. As hard as it was, it's like given me an absolute war chest now that I draw resource from every single day with what I'm doing with cloth projects. And I think, without that, I probably would never have started my own brand. But also, if I did, it would be obviously 10 times harder.
Yeah, and I think one of my favorite things about running my agency, aside from the people, and I love helping people, I always have done, is the amount of learning, because you get an inside view of people running brands, so that if I did one day want to run my own brand, I actually know how, like, because I've watched so many other people do it, and you learn different approaches. Actually, we even learn so much doing this podcast when you think about it, Yas, because if you look at some of our guests who have focused so heavily on like organic media versus paid media and the different approaches, but I mean, props to you for starting an agency when you were 22 and surviving it and coming out the other side.
Luz, I didn't know I was starting an agency. That was never the plan, and that's the only reason I did it. I think it was like an idea, and my goal was just to have one client. And then all of a sudden, it's like, oh shit, okay, if we've got one client, then we definitely need another, because that's how we grow. And then it kind of went from there. I think you hear quite a lot people saying, oh, if I knew then what I know now, I wouldn't have ever done it. I actually don't feel like that. I don't feel like that. However, if you'd have asked me that question in like year 3 or 4 of running a business, I'd have been like, get me out of here. This is so stressful. But like I say, if you can come out the other side, honestly, it's like the most amazing on the job learning experience that I think you can get. So I want to say that to you, Luce, as well, because the skills and knowledge that we're both picking up, but even especially you kind of running your agency now, it's going to equip you for the next 15, 20 years in business.
Well, thank you. It's also helpful to be surrounded by people who have done it as well. And I think, to be honest, going on this journey, I founded my agency by myself. Actually having, not that we're here just to plug Ecomm Girls Club, but having a community of girls who have been through it and understand it is the most helpful thing, because I met a girl even this week who's in Ecomm Girls Club who runs an agency and also has a business not like Ecomm Girls Club, but very much media focused and very present. And it was so helpful to sit down, and we sat down for 2 hours and just ended up talking about everything about it. And it helps so much. And I mean, Yasmine and I say all the time, this podcast is like therapy for us. We're like mid-Friday delirium as well. Both of us, for transparency, have been having our own dramas. Just been like, we got to Friday, we're okay. And actually talking on balance, that is one thing that I think is super important. I find in life, and I know you do this way better than I am, splitting your life into how you think about it into quadrants.
Yeah.
When things are kind of okay across the quadrants, and you've got a really heavy like business week and it's really hard, you can get through it. But as soon as like those other areas of your life, whether it be like friendships or family, relationships, health, start like faltering a bit, that's when it feels like everything, I'm always like, my business is going to end and sink. I get so dramatic, but that's how you feel.
Yeah. Do you know what? Normally I feel exactly like that. Like if one other thing falters, or so you know how basically I break my life down into like core pillars or buckets or whatever. And there are quite a few studies to actually support this and whatever. Like, yeah, it's quite widely available. But basically, scoring your buckets out of 10 and then totaling up the total score is just a really good exercise, because you can actually see in black and white like which areas of your life are lacking and need more attention. And sometimes, so like if it's social, literally just booking in dinner with a friend can take your social score from 3 out of 10 to like 8 out of 10. That's or a call with your mum or whatever it is. And so yeah, usually like my work bucket is really affected by all these other buckets if they're not full. However, this week I've been like, I don't know, I've just been stressed in a certain quadrant of my life, which I've ranted to Lucy about, and I'm not going to rant on the podcast about it. But
we're not here to air our dirty laundry just yet.
Yeah, no, we're not. But my work has really, really lifted me up. Like, and I have to say, it's the first time in a long time that the strength of my work bucket, if this makes sense, has been strong enough to actually support my other buckets when they're not full. Yeah, I know. Like, I can literally just like open my laptop and open my WhatsApps where I talk to like you and Sasha and like suppliers and whatever. And like within 5 minutes, I've forgotten about my other drama, and I'm like so in my work, and my dopamine's gone up because I'm excited about what's going on, and everything just like is really motivating. And I don't know what's happened there, like what that actual shift is. I don't know. But yeah, for the first time in a long time, my work bucket is like really supporting me mentally. Normally the opposite. So that's
tune in next week to see if this is true. Like, next Friday, if Yasmine still thinks her work is going to fix her mental health, but okay, sure.
Sounds like such a juxtaposition, the irony.
But it's when you're doing something you love, it does help. But then it is that vicious circle thing where you can do something you love, and I get so into my work that I sometimes just block out the rest of my life. But no one hears from me for 5 days.
You even said yesterday, which I absolutely loved to hear. You were like,
what did I say?
No, you were like, I've got so much work to do, and I'm like excited to do it. Like I just want to get into it and do it. I'm like, oh my God, that's honestly, it's the best feeling ever. When your work day and your tasks, you wake up and you look at them, you're like, I fucking can't wait to do this. And it's not, let's be real, that is not every day. In fact, I probably get one day like that, 2 days like that a week if I'm lucky. And a lot of the work that we do is like work that we don't want to do, and that's just life, sadly. But like, I think being able to have a bit of that good mixed with a bit of the bad is where we find balance. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I think so. Balance also changes depending on where you are in your life, right? There are some times when balance for me is working super hard and cutting back on the social stuff, because I don't want to socialize all the time. And then, you have weeks where for example, it was my birthday last week, and so social things took precedent, like for the first time in months, and that was actually really refreshing. So I think, it's like everything in life and everything we talk about on this podcast, we learn as we go, I guess.
I guess this week, I don't know, like I feel like I've been having it's been quite a boring week because Jim's away.
Sometimes boring is good.
Yeah, but honestly, I text, I can't remember my mum and I was like, I'm really enjoying the boring, simple life because it allows me to have like routine, and I'm not spending all my money on going out for meals or transport or whatever. And I'm just literally, I am in my apartment, or I'll go to a cafe and I'll just work. And there's something just really liberating and calming actually about like living below your means, firstly, and also just like having a low-key week or a low-key month. Like I think there's so much pressure to always be having like a socially full diary and like seeing your mates every week, or like even fitness. Like I'm the biggest advocate for fitness and training, but if like on one week you just can't be bothered because it's like the week before your period, or like you're just knackered, like you just want to go for a chill walk every day. Honestly, like I have been training, but I've also just been a bit more chill, and yeah, I've kind of enjoyed that. But sometimes I get to like 6 p.m. or maybe like 5, 6 p.m. because I work UK hours. So I'll get to, and I have this mental block after like 5 hours of there's no more creativity. Like that's just the way I operate. I've tried for years to change it, but it just doesn't work. Like I know I know when I'm productive.
Accept who you are.
Yeah, I'm just accepting who I am. Sometimes though I'll get to like 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the evening. I'm like, okay, what do I do now? I know all my mates are like, go for a walk, like do some exercise, or like go see a friend. And it's like, I kind of want to, but I kind of don't. I kind of do just want to sit in my apartment and be on my own, you know, just be really chill.
I do have days as well where, I live in Hong Kong most of the year, and we have typhoons maybe 2-3 times a year. There's like a big typhoon where you're not really meant to go out. There's warnings everywhere, and it's like a hell of a storm. And it's one of those weird things where it's really annoying because all your social plans get cancelled, gyms get shut if it gets to a level called a T10, so you can't do anything. Think of your Dubai storm. It's like that, but like 3 times a year.
3 times
like it gets, well, a few times a year, like scaffolding will come down, trees will come down, all that kind of stuff. So you stay inside. And actually, as much as it's inconvenient, I actually get quite excited to be locked in my house just and do nothing and work and have a really simple life. And it might seem really sad, and believe me, after a few days it wears off. It's actually really nice to just kind of have the options taken away from you to socialize and do all these things and have a busy life, and you're just forced to kind of sit, and in my case work. And I'm very lucky I can work from my laptop from home, but it's quite enjoyable. And I know I'm saying that from a very privileged position. I don't have children, for example, or like dogs that need walking, and you know, but it's kind of nice. So I guess maybe you get balance forced on you sometimes as well.
Completely. It's nice. I like it.
Yeah, well, I think maybe that's enough for us today.
That was good though. I feel like I needed to rant on. I don't know, it's like nice to actually talk about things that are a bit more, I don't know, just a bit more normal.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit the subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And to get involved with Ecomm Girls Club, search for @Ecomm Girls Club on Instagram. And if you feel like taking your Instagram stalking one step further, we are both also on Instagram @Yasmine Chic and @LucyCG.